The AKG K7XX audiophile grade headphones are the first custom-made headphones by Mastrop. Based on the legendary K702, this updated and refined model features improved memory foam earpads, tweaked sound drivers, and an easily replaceable detachable cable. You can check out the link down below to enter a giveaway for a chance to win a blacked out pair just like the ones I've been using since before I even started this channel. If you'd rather not wait, Mastrop offers fast shipping, and at $199.99, these things offer great performance at a great price.
Hey y'all, Moses here. Today I wanted to go over some of the news and the patch notes that have been released in the last day or two here from the PUBG devs that kind of give us a little bit more information after the kind of clouded, not very informative news release they put out a couple of days ago regarding the October and vaulting patch, as well as some of the test server information they put out. So this news came out yesterday or the day before. And I'll go over the quick hits here, and then we're going to jump into some gameplay so you don't have to watch me talk this entire time. So just the quick hits here. The first test server is going to be in early November. So that'll include the vaulting and climbing feature for us to test out. That'll be the initial test phase. And it needs a minimum of 3 days of extensive testing. So it'll be a relatively short window, but enough for all of us to kind of get our hands on it, try it out, see what it feels like, and just see what the game is like with vaulting and climbing included. And then there will be second and third rounds of testing after that as they kind of move towards the 11-week or 1.0 release window. So there was some interesting information around this 1.0 build that wasn't actually given to us in the previous release, which again, maybe this is a bit of a mea culpa to kind of present some more information for us to understand why it's going to take so long. But let me just go over real quick. So here, basically, they're constantly working on all these. This is what they're saying. They've been constantly working on optimization and some of the other bugs and issues that have plagued the game for the last little while. And they've actually stated that they've even resolved some of the issues during this internal development. And these changes cannot always be reflected upon the live servers immediately. And now you're probably like, why? Why can't you just patch it? So basically they say they can't continue with the weekly patches to fix this stuff because it would delay the release date of 1.0, which is fair enough. I mean, it's not the answer that a lot of us would like to hear, but okay. So that is a reason. So within that, there is something that is also kind of, it makes you wonder what 1.0 is going to be like. Essentially what they say, keep in mind that the live server and the developing 1.0 build are not easy to integrate or merge together. So that means one of two things. The first aspect is that there might be some very fundamental changes to the code base that is going to be implemented in PC 1.0 that just will not jive with the current early access model or code base. So that might be things like netcode, the actual engine performance, engine patches. Because people have stated that Unreal Engine 4 has been, releasing patches that fixes certain things over the last couple of months and weeks. And I haven't been up to date on that, but my anticipation is that if those two things are so vastly different, they can't actually patch it in a change fashion or a delta fashion, that 1.0 is going to be significantly different than early access. So that scares me a little bit in the sense that I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because we've all learned this game as it is, and vaulting and climbing is a big enough change, let alone some of the other stuff that might come along that suggests that the two code bases might not even be able to merge. So let's move on. This is the one thing in the patch notes that's coming next week that is actually it's a one-liner in gameplay, so not a very impactful or very fleshed out kind of change, but it's huge, and that is increase the blue zone damage over time. So now that is something that is going to change the game significantly, and it might not seem like it. It might be a very simple kind of, okay, well, the blue is going to do more damage. Well, this affects a lot of different things. I put a video out a couple days ago or yesterday talking about the 3 different strategies that typically get employed by players. Now, the first strategy is, seeking a building in the middle or seeking some area in the middle of the map and kind of holding that while the blue and the circles change and continually moving to find the best spot in the center of the map. The second strategy, and arguably one of the most popular or popular due to just the skill level of players or the preference of players, and that is to play the edge of the zone. So to hang out near the edge of the circle and only move when it's absolutely necessary. Those two things, or those two strategies, I should say, probably represent a large portion of the player base, unless you're running around looking for kills specifically. Regardless, if you play on the edge of the circle, an increase to the blue zone damage is going to be critical to that playstyle, in the sense that if you get caught in the blue, that damage over time being increased is going to significantly reduce your chances of survival, and it's also going to make some other aspects of the game, much more important by butterfly effect, for lack of a better term. So let me just kind of extrapolate some of the information for those of you who don't quite understand, or maybe let me try and give you an idea as to why this is a big deal and what I understand this change means. So the damage over time factor. So currently every circle has a fixed amount of damage. I can't reference them off the top of my head, but essentially as the game progresses, the blue will do increasing damage immediately. Now in the early game and up until the mid and late game, you can actually tank the blue, and we've seen that in instances like at Gamescom, where players like Evermore, for instance, I think is the most popular example, would sit outside in the blue and med constantly while people died to fighting, because realistically placement in the competitive landscape is more important, at least in that instance, than kills were. So the longer you stay alive, the more points you get. So in this particular instance, damage over time increasing. So let's say the damage over time, instead of being a fixed value in the early game, continues to increase the longer time you spend in the blue. That is a huge change. So that affects both the competitive meta as well as just the standard issue player base. So if they model it in the sense that if you're in for 15 seconds, it does the base amount of damage, and then it begins to increase at an incremental level, say every 15 or 20 or 30 seconds. That first and second circle could potentially kill you if you get a bad circle. So what is that going to mean for the overall gameplay? That essentially is going to put a lot of pressure onto players to find vehicles. So the vehicle importance is going to skyrocket because of that. Finding a vehicle in the early game is going to ensure that you can get out of the blue and out of danger relatively quickly. So players are going to be landing more frequently at vehicle spawns, and it might alleviate some of the pressure in places like school. Well, maybe not school because it's fairly central, but military base and other further points away on the map like Lipovka, Zarki, which no one ever goes to anyway, Stalber, the new town, Kameshki, all these kind of edge areas that might not get in that first circle depending on the zone. I think we'll have less players dropping at them because it'll be more dangerous and higher risk to potentially get a bad circle there. So not only will the pressure to get a vehicle increase, but it'll also reduce player populations in areas of the map that might be considered dangerous for players who are trying to avoid getting caught in a circle that will do increasing damage over time. We've all had those games where running through the blue for the first two circles is just kind of, you're on that permanent treadmill in the circle. That isn't going to stop because you'll die. I mean, as far as what I understand this change to be, that change in itself is going to force players to either give up looting immediately or start running with no loot. So it'll really force play into the play zone, and it will also mean most likely quicker games. I don't know if I don't quite know what kind of damage over time they're referencing, but typically the damage over time will increase. I mean, that's the most, I think that's the most common suggestion, is just to have the blue do increasing damage the longer you're in it, which makes the most sense for this initial change. And I think this is something they're going to do in early access before 1.0 releases, so they can kind of test it. Not to mention they have a tournament coming up that is very important for them to kind of establish or continue to establish PUBG as an esport, and they do not want another Evermore situation where they have all these viewers watching some guy just med out in the blue and having, people like Pansy and Sims try to explain what's happening. Whereas realistically, you can't really build hype around someone sitting outside the play zone or in the water, constantly healing. So the other bug fix here, I'll just touch on really quick. is that they've resolved a bug where bullets would sometimes ignore armor. I'm glad they fixed that. It's happened to me a couple of times. I actually don't know how many times it's happened to me, and neither do you, but essentially sometimes you would get, randomly one shot with a level 3 helmet or, a level 3 vest with an AWM if it hit you in the groin area, which was not a feature, it was a bug. So they've apparently fixed that. But this blue zone change is really, really huge, especially for the competitive meta, where so many players play the edge of the circle and ride the blue in. It's going to be very critical to change that entirely. So I'm really excited. And if you guys watch PUBG Online, where I do analysis, or if you just follow the competitive kind of community at all, this next patch is going to change things almost entirely. At least that's my anticipation or my estimation at this point. I don't know if it'll be a drastic increase in damage or just a slow build. It could also be insignificant as well, but realistically, just the perception of increased blue damage, even to a small extent, will put pressure on people's meds, the ability to travel, and a lot of other things that will change the game regardless of if the increase is small or large. So I'm very interested to see how this changes the game, especially ahead of this PC 1.0 release. So I'm interested to hear your feedback as well. I know this is a pretty contentious issue. I want to know from the players that watch this stream, if you play in a competitive league, I'm really interested to know what your thoughts on this change are. If you like it, let me know. And of course, this is just kind of an overview. I think I'll probably follow up on this once the change is implemented and kind of analyze how the meta changes, at least in the competitive community. And we'll go from there. So yeah, leave a comment down below with your thoughts, and like the video if you liked it, and dislike it if you didn't. You can follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/wtfmoses and on Twitter at wtfmoses. More content, of course, coming this week. I'm excited to bring you some stuff with PUBG Breakdown and a few other things coming up. But I wanted to get this video out, get your thoughts, and show you and share some of mine. So thanks again for watching, and until next time, I'll see you out there.